I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today I set up a Subnautica-styled modular space station. That's right, and we get ourselves prepared for Gregtech. Hopefully you guys are ready. Now today we are taking off here in All the Mods 9, and we are preparing ourselves for a new adventure. And that new adventure is going to be Gregtech. But I promise today is going to be a little bit more than just Gregtech. Today, we build ourselves a space station. That's right, you heard me, we are building ourselves a space station. And that means, well, I want to come up with a plan for how I'm going to build out a space station that is going to house all of our Gregtech related needs. Now, before we do this, there are a few steps that we're going to need to make before actually diving headfirst into the space station build. Now, something to note, if we don't have the appropriate protection and we're on space, well, we take damage. So we are going to need to sort of prepare ourselves a little bit in that regard. So I've done a little bit of work here, and what I've done is I've installed an upgrade to my pneumaticraft helmet, and that is a space breathing upgrade. It just requires a spacesuit, and bam, we now have that inside of our pneumaticraft helmet. And there you go. You can see now why I've sort of prepped up this gear. And so with this installed, I can hit U to enable the breathing. And this is really nice because if I have myself a canister in my inventory and the space breathing on, you can see in the bottom left, I have it set up so I can actually see how much of my canister is left. But I don't think that's going to be a big problem for me because I actually want to set up our canister to be automated and automatically refill when it gets low. Now, this is going to save me such a headache when building in space. That way I don't have to worry about my oxygen depleting and needing to go refill it over and over again. Now, since my last time playing, Ad Astra has actually updated quite a bit and has some interesting interfaces and options. You can see there are some side configs here, which allow me to configure all of the input slots on this machine, which is kind of cool. And you can see we have our oxygen in this slot. Now, what I want to do is I want to automatically insert the item to be loaded into this slot, which would be our netherite canister right here. And then I want it to automatically be ejected whenever it is full down here. Now, to do this, I'm going to use modular routers. This is pretty cool because modular routers has a player module. This player module allows the modular router to interact with my inventory in multiple different ways. I can take from the router. I can also send from the router to the player, which we're going to be doing both of these. I think I actually might need 2 player modules, but we'll talk about that here in a second. And we can interact with our main inventory. We can interact with the main inventory, but not the hotbar. We can do the armor slots. There's offhand ender inventory and all kinds of cool things. And I think just dealing with our main inventory will be kind of nice in this regard. So let's talk about this wonky automation, but it does work. And so what I need to do is I need to have this slot right here expelling the fluid because the import slots on these are a little broken at the moment. I don't know if it's just something related to the mod and the way these configs work, but I did do some testing and I couldn't get the items to go into these slots and go out here. So instead, we're going to send it to a mechanism tank. And this has also an IO. So it has an input and an output for inventories. And we're going to have this set to fill mode. And so what I'm going to do is I need this modular router here to then send the item that we are going to have set inside of our player model, which is going to be the netherite canister on empty, completely empty. We need to make sure it is on whitelist and match NBT. And then I have the main inventory sending from the player, from my inventory here, back into the modular router. So when it goes empty, it's going to pull from my inventory and put it in the buffer. And then I have a sender that is just going to send the contents of this router into this tank. And then this IO is going to then take the oxygen here and fill the canister, and then we're going to have it in the output slot. And that's where this one comes into play. We're going to have a puller module that technically should be here to pull the item into the buffer. And this is just configured to pull from the tank. And then we have our player model here, which is looking for a full netherite canister that is also matching that NBT data, except this one is sending from the router back into my main inventory. So pretty good. We can also set this to no hotbar, so we make sure it doesn't mess with our hotbar. It just really depends. I mean, I would maybe prefer it to not to send it to my hotbar, but for right now, I'm just going to leave it to main inventory and see if that becomes a problem. But outside of that, this should technically work. And we should be able to, for example, deplete this oxygen can whenever it goes completely down. It's just going to automatically pull it immediately out of inventory, put it in here probably so fast I won't even know it's doing it, and then it is going to put it right back in my inventory again. So we may take like a tick of damage as it recognizes we don't have it in our inventory, but then immediately it's going to refill. Now to put this to the test, let's just go ahead and craft an empty one, and as soon as we put this in our inventory, it should immediately be converted into, yes, a full version. That is going to be very powerful. And now that I see this, I definitely want to make sure this is set to no hotbar. Yeah, I just don't want it putting the new product back into my hotbar. I think I'd rather keep it inside the main inventory. So I now have my rocket all fueled up and ready to go. So let's boop it down and get ready to travel to, well, the moon. We're going to be building a space station on the moon, and I prefer the moon. I think you can go to other planets and you can build space stations on those, but to get to the moon space station, these are the items that are pretty much going to be required here. So we need the 32 dash, we're going to need the steel, we're going to need the iron and the dash plates. I really wish it said this in the book in some way, but I'm sure this can be configured for each mod pack. But you would have to go to space and then be able to see the ingredient list, because I don't think you can pull up that radial menu, which we're about to see whenever we travel back into space. So let's go ahead and get ready to do this. We have, this should be everything we need. And as soon as we hop in the rocket, with it fully fueled up, we can go ahead and launch. Oh boy, this starts our journey into Gregtech. Well, sort of. We've still got to build the thing first. Off we go to infinity and beyond yet again. Oh, I love this mod so much. I don't know, I really do enjoy space mods. I have to say though, advanced rocketry is still one of my favorite space mods of all time, but still, just having access to a space mod in general, how could I ever complain? Just absolutely amazing. The space stations alone make this mod absolutely worth it. And if you remember, you've watched my All the Mods 8 series, we actually built Deep Space Nine in that one. Oh, that was kind of fun. So here we go. Let's go to our regular solar system, and then we go to Earth, I believe, and then space stations. And you can see the space station to make one on Earth is going to require the iron plates, the dash, everything we have here. And then when we use this, it's going to use those materials to craft out the actual space station. So here we go. And we should be getting ready to land on our space station. This is kind of interesting. We see we are getting lower and lower. Hold space to apply the boosters. Thankfully, the gravity is not crazy here, but we are getting closer, and there it is. This is the default space station that is available whenever you do, when you do create this. This is basically what all of your resources go towards, and you do need to have oxygen. So notice my oxygen in the bottom left is depleting. That is important to note. Also, our gravity is very weird here. I'm basically just free floating. So I don't even think that I will just like float down. No, I will stay stationary. And I think this was a recent change. And they did add some new tools to be able to help us with this. Now I can, it looks like hold shift, but I think my creative flight might be helping me. Now with the creative flight, I can just sort of fly around, which is really nice. But if you do not have that and you go into this place, you are going to experience weird gravitational anomalies, basically. And so this is the default space station. I'm going to be tearing this whole thing down, and we're going to be building our own space station very soon. But this one is pretty cool. We do have some like space back here where you can put like oxygen. You would just have to close off the entirety of this area in order for all of that to work. So now that we've established our space station, let's go ahead and set up the center point, which is going to be right here in the center. And I'm going to place down a waystone right here in the middle. And this will be the Greg station. Yes. So we now have Greg Station 9, and we are going to start building here. But honestly, I would love for you guys to let me know once we get started building with the station down in the comments below, what should we name this place? This is going to be a modular space station that I'm going to be building for this, where we can expand upon it as needed, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to show you here in a moment, but I would love for you guys to let me know down in the comments below what we should actually call this thing. It's going to be pretty cool. Now for the fun part. I'm going to make sure my magnet is on, and I am going to destroy the entirety of this station because we are going to start the journey of building our own. So just one block at a time, well, with vein miner, that is, I'm going to be tearing this whole thing apart and just leaving this single platform right here for us to work off of. So now that whole area cleared out, it's time for my plan to really start to unfold. And well, we are going to be building out all of our modules. Now, I want to have a modular base, and to be able to do a modular base means I need to build out the modules and come up with the idea for the grid that I want to base it off of. Now, I want a place to be able to build these different modules, and I think one of the best places to build this, while not exactly super flat as far as the world design goes, it is going to be nice and bright and easy to distinguish all the parts. So to be able to get to this dimension, we've got to dive back into the Mahotsukai and, well, harm ourselves a little bit, place down our ring, hit it with 3 of the powdered diamond, and we are creating ourselves a reality marble spell. And whenever I use this, we're going to travel to a new dimension. And this dimension is the reality marble. Honestly, it is amazing. And it has a couple of reasons why it's amazing. You have access to all of these weapons that are on the ground. And these weapons you can pick up. These are all entities, however, so I really wouldn't want to, I think, build a massive base out here. I don't know how these would affect the world, but you can take these. They do have 1 durability, and they do have enchants on them. So you could just technically strip all of the enchants off of all of these swords if you really wanted to. Now, I just simply want to use this for all of the sand that is down here. This is going to allow me to see my grid way more effectively. So with this, I need to start figuring out, and I think this is the highest point. So I'm going to start here. And this is going to be the start of all of those like different modules that I want to build out. And I want to figure out what is the best grid size for this. Is it going to be 9x9s? Is it going to be 11x11s? I don't know just yet. Now, I'm building out this grid. One thing to note, if you don't like all the swords, apparently, if you open up your pneumaticraft gear, if you're wearing it, you can go underneath the, where is it at? The entity tracker. And just by putting something in here, for some reason, I've noticed it just wipes all of the entities that are around you within your radius. But whenever you do go out, you will see that they still exist, but it has just wiped all the ones within the radius of you. To me, that's a very weird interaction. So I think I've figured out my grid size. It is going to be 11x11s. So our grid pattern is going to go out and leave us with a 9x9 to sort of work with to build out all of our different sort of structures that I want to use. Oh, and by the way, you might have noticed that I did go ahead and turn on the dark mode. I turned on the dark mode because when we're going to be in space, it's going to be pretty hit in the face when everything's dark and all of a sudden you're getting blasted with a white screen. So I just toggled this button in the bottom left and I have set it to a bit of a darker theme, but that also makes other things dark as well and kind of looks a bit off, but it's definitely worth the trade-off when we go into those dimensions. All right, so here is one of the first iterations of my modular design. So take a look at kind of what I'm doing here. This is kind of something that I'm just kind of throwing about, and I want to base it around these sliding doors because I do want to use these inside of the build. Now, this is just for the transport. Now, I think the main room areas should be within this 32x32 or 33x33 space. So I will be able to expand out some more grids to be able to fit those in here. But this is kind of the idea of the like modular area. This is going to be like a quad connector that allows me to have access to all the sides. And this will be the spot that I will have to manually fill in, including the door in between each of these modules, basically leaving a empty space if I want to keep things in this odd way. Now, this is really hard to explain without actually putting it into motion. So I want to get a couple more of these built out and then we can actually start to use them. So I've gone ahead and I've built out a couple of these modules. So as you can see here, I now have myself a corner module. I now have a 3 long module, and we still have our center one. And then I have a production facility area. This is a massive module that covers basically a 3x3 of those 11 grids. This one is the 33x33 that I was mentioning. And then I made an extra tall one. So this one is 3 tall, so 33 tall, but only takes up a 2 grid. And I still have room for even more of these. But for right now, I think this is going to be enough to kind of get these schematics up and running. And I've got to start coming up with names for each of these. And if you've missed my prior video on how to make schematics, all you have to do is take yourself a schematic in Quill from Create, and you need to select a point. For example, I'm going to select this point down here, and all I have to do is place a block right here. And then find the adjacent point up top here. Should be right where I need. I think it's this location right here. And so now I should have this corner point. And so if I click this, I should be able to select this entire bounding box, and we'll be able to tell that all of this is now selected and contained within this area. And then once we're ready to name it, I just right click the file and then I just name it whatever I want. And in this case, I think corner bridge will work. And so now corner bridge is now saved as a schematic. So back in our space dimension, I have myself a schematic cannon. And what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and get that schematic stuff going. So let's grab create. And then there's also a schematic table that we're going to be using quite a bit here. But just for getting started, I'm going to go ahead and let's grab some gray. I'm going to go ahead and sort of expand this out. This is actually where our base platform is going to be. And this is where we're going to start the whole like project here. But, oh, that is not where I want that. But if I place this here, I can start to get my schematics ready to go. And so I can just select which one I want, which is going to be what allows us to sort of be modular. Now, let's start with our first area being that large room. I think that is going to be like one of the best ways that we can kind of at least get a focal point, like a middle focal point place going. Now, the schematic cannon, it needs it needs the inventory to be next to it in order for it to work. So I was thinking, since I built all of that stuff with that in mind, I only used 2 materials. I used gray and I used white concrete. Now I can make these look like anything. I can exchange all of these blocks later on. And that's kind of why I left them divided like that. But it does make it really easy for me to just auto-craft gray and white concrete into like some sort of barrel, for example, next to this. So I can do functional storage, and I can make, for example, a double barrel. So let's go ahead and get the items here. And this double barrel, I can just say, hey, be right next to this and contain white and also contain gray. So we have both of those in. And then I can use a network receiver right here. And I'm going to go ahead and link my card to that. And then I should be able to do an export card, right? And I'll use an exporter with a crafter upgrade card, and I can constantly keep this restocked. And this is what's going to allow us to sort of have that mechanic that I was talking about before, where we are going to be able to just craft these modules on demand. Oh, this is gonna be so cool. So let's go ahead and drop the cable in. There we go. And then we'll set the 2 gray and white concrete in here. So we have our gray, we have our white, and then we put our crafting card. And now whenever I hook this up, it's going to keep this stocked with these materials. Let's actually put some stack upgrades in here. Probably 1 stack could be just fine to keep up with this. And then this is going to keep this full, allowing us to use our schematic cannon at any moment. So now with this linked up, you can see it is now ready to go. So let's go ahead and get our first schematic. So we're going to dive back into some more create here. We don't use the schematic in Quill. For this, we're going to use an empty schematic. And the empty schematic, we need to put into the schematic table, and we're going to select the large room. I'm going to go ahead and send that into here. And then we get to kind of place it in. So if I go ahead and I say place this in, we can now see the whole thing. And this is where the fun really starts to happen. Because I should be able to hold control and put this kind of wherever we need it to go. So like on the X and Y, I can just kind of scroll to put this wherever we want. Oh, and we're already almost where I need this to go. So I need this to go like a couple in this direction, like that, to line it up. And then we need to go a couple in this direction. I think right here, one more. And now we have this perfectly aligned with the center here. And we should be ready to go with our schematic cannon to get this ready to place in. So with this done, I can now go ahead and put the schematic in to load it up. Let's grab some gunpowder and put some gunpowder in here. And just like we've done before, we'll go and check our printer settings. We probably want to replace any solid. Let's go ahead and don't replace solid blocks just to keep it on the safe side, and then skip any missing would be fine. And then we can protect entities, I think is a good idea as well, just so we don't make mistakes. And we're ready to start building. And then this is just going to start building out this entire schematic one block at a time. And so I can actually go ahead and just get rid of these blocks. So that way when it fills it in, it makes sure to fill in all of these blocks with white, just like we have listed here. Perfect. And yes, I can go ahead and speed this up with a time in the bottle, which will make this go a lot faster. But I'll have to keep in mind this right here. If I do speed it up, we're probably going to want to have speed upgrades in here to make sure this always keeps it in stock. But you can see, there it goes. So we're spitting blocks incredibly fast. And this thing is just going to build all of these individual modules. And I think the schematic cannon has some really good range. So I shouldn't be worried about like the range when we go to add more modules. This thing is just really trucking along. Just look at this. It's actually so satisfying to just watch it build it. I mean, it's like a 3D printer. It does one row at a time. And look at it just making all of these structures. And I can just keep adding more and more of these. So these all can be connected to each other. So I left room. However, they do need to be a single block space in between the connectors. So whenever I do build out each room, there will be a gray connector that is going to be between them, allowing us to put doors to make sure that all of these rooms are considered a sealed room. And I also still need to put in the glass or whatever I decide to put in the walls for these buildings. Wait, I just gotta show this again. This is just, it's so good. I'm gonna make another short bridge and then just connect this here. Oh, and this one like is a 2 wide on our grid. And so this 2 wide grid, I can go ahead and I can change the rotation. Oh, look how good that looks. Okay, and then the position, let's go ahead and change the Y value and we'll get that set in place and we should be able to place it just like that. Oh, and then I can set the XYZ and then I can put this right where it needs to go. 1 and then 2, leaving a single block gap in between. And look, we can actually preview what it's going to look like before we're even done. I've already placed this one in and just look how pretty this is going to be. And these are just the modules. So I can just continue to build on this over and over and over again and continue to add this as I want. And that's why I added those modules. I have like a little a coupling that will allow me to couple these together and then have the other bridges that I can route around. And then I can add like different modules on the outside to those couplings and add the other rooms. Like I can put the tall rooms that are in here. There's just a lot of different modular things I can do. And I can even build new rooms down the road if we need new space. Oh, this is going to be good. By the way, while this is all building out, I did want to mention if you're a supporter of any tier, you guys will have access to all of these schematics in the world's download channel over on my Discord. So check it out if you're a supporter on Twitch, if you're a supporter here on YouTube, on Discord, or even on Patreon. You guys all get access to all of these schematic files. So definitely check it out. And thanks again to all of you who do choose to support and go above and beyond just clicking that subscribe button. Thank you so much. Now this is just so satisfying. I'm going to click this in and this is going to be a connector piece that is going to be routed right here. So if I move this into position, just like so, and you can definitely tell I'm getting good at this now. Move our Y position down into the position we need, and this should align perfectly. Oh man, that is just so satisfying. Just everything being aligned like you want it. Oh, this is good. This is so good. Okay, you could definitely tell I'm incredibly happy with this because this is like my envision of the setting up the station. Like everything is just working. It's just, you gotta love it when stuff just works. So I'm just now getting that last bit in. Oh, it's just so satisfying. I can't say this enough. Oh, I'm just like lining up the Y value, getting that perfect, and then lining this up all for it to just meet perfectly in place. Oh, and look at this whole thing. This is just beautiful so far. So now I've got all of my couplings connected and I placed in the doors. These are airlocks from Ad Astra. There's a bunch of different variations of them and I'm probably going to use a bunch of types. Like I might use these airlocks more for these middle sections, but I do want these to be sectioned off. And that's going to help with the oxygen and stuff that I plan on kind of setting up in here, hopefully in the future. But for right now, this is pretty cool. Also, don't mind the day flickering on and off. That's going to happen because we have the daytime automated in the overworld, and this does base its time off of the overworld. But yeah, look at this. We can just kind of float through here right now. I am essentially floating. It feels like I'm floating, but yeah, as you can see, I'm just kind of flying. I'm not even in like the flying mode. I'm just like, I'm on the ground and I'm walking forward and we just like float to the next bay. It just feels so cool. And having these structures up is going to be really nice. Also having the windows in and everything whenever I got to figure out what I want to actually make this look like and what materials I potentially want this to be. I mean, we could stick with the white concrete, but I have a feeling that a more rustic style is probably going to be a better bet, but it may require more expensive materials. Like for example, these sheet metal slabs and stuff like that, and might cost a lot. And now this is just a starting point, as we will have access to adding and expanding more off of here. I can do like a 3 long. Then if I do a 3 long off the side, then it really changes up how we will interlock all of our sections on like another tier. And we could just have some tiers that just expand off of these sides. Maybe we don't add to this side, or maybe we just put a building on this side and a building on this side, and then it just expand off of these sides. Like there's so many possibilities with this modular setup. And I could just really do whatever I need, depending on what we start to work on within Gregtech, which I'm kind of like nervous to get into the more I look at it. That, my friends, is going to be it for today's episode. And I hope you guys did enjoy. I know we didn't go into any Gregtech, but at least we're getting the infrastructure and the building set up. And that is the important part, at least to me. I enjoy building the most. So if you did enjoy, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and check out the Discord if you haven't checked it out already. And well, speaking of earlier with supporters, it is now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That amazing thanks is going to go out to Sour Stick. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. And also getting access to all of those schematic files. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.